What's up, everybody? This is Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com. That's HawgSports.com. Today we'll talk Razorback football, basketball, baseball as always. We're going to dive into a little bit of uniform discussion. I had a big article earlier this week about Arkansas's uniforms of the past, and we're expecting them to unveil some new ones probably within a month or so. Danny West is going to join us to talk Razorback recruiting. Pete Roulier will join us to talk a little bit about Razorback baseball and more. All that and more on HawgSports Live. Okay, everybody, before we get started here, I want to go ahead and remind you to throw us thumbs up if you like the content that we produce. Hit the notification bell. Anything you can do to help us increase our activity online, grassroots, telling your friends, all that stuff helps us. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, throw us 5 stars and give us a review. We're on Spotify, we're on Stitcher, as I mentioned, Apple Podcasts, Facebook Live, YouTube. Throw us that thumbs up, like, share, follow, comment. I also want to go ahead and encourage you to get some questions in for us, and we'll answer your questions also. And we're going to jump into the uniform discussion first, but I also want you to go ahead and get some stuff for Danny West and for Pete Roulier if you have that. So just diving right into it. First, with Arkansas's uniforms, based on 2012 and 2018, when Arkansas released uniforms last, aside from last year when they, aside from 2014 when they had the whole gigging deal with Nike and they redid the font and all that stuff because that was released in April. But we're expecting sometime between June 10th, July 13th is when I would say, just based on that Arkansas would come out with the new uniforms. Or it's always possible that they would wait and try to do a night before the game. You know, they do release uniforms during the season, the day before the game. So let's just break into it real quick. For those listening on podcasts, I'll try to be descriptive as possible here. But back in, July of last year, Arkansas came out with new uniforms, and this is the look right here. All right, so what they did is they removed the double tusk on the front. And before I get into this, I want to say there are so many different opinions on uniforms. So many people out there will say, why do we care about the uniforms? It doesn't really matter. It should matter what the players think. And yes, I think there are all those things. There's a great quote, and I can't remember who said it, but it's about golf. And it's, if you look down at your driver and you don't like the way it looks, you're never going to hit it well. And I think the same can be said for uniforms and stuff like that. And don't act like you didn't strut around when you're in 7th grade in your first football uniforms and your pads for about an hour around your house. So, yes, it's important if the recruits like it. I think there's an aspect of fans who care about what it looks like from a historical standpoint. And, there are some that just want it to be fresh. I'm of the opinion that, you want something that's matches the history of Arkansas athletics, and everybody has their own idea of what that uniform is with a modern spin. So let's jump right into it here. This is the 2018 look. Razorbacks across the chest. Of course, this was introduced in 2014 as the gigging project with Nike. Arkansas got its own font with Razorbacks across the chest. And Arkansas on the away jerseys. And they had two tusks coming up the shoulders. They actually removed this in 2018, and they just left the one tusk. They also had this tusk thing down the side of the leg. And I don't understand why Arkansas has embraced the tusk thing. I mean, like, really the snout, to me, if you're going to embrace a part of the hog, the snout, the tusk, I mean, you've got that thing where people are doing the Tuscum thing. I think this is so lame looking. I mean, does anybody think this looks cool? Nobody thinks that looks cool. So you've got this idea, and I think it started back around 2008, 2009, I think, Bobby Petrino's first year, where they had the tusk thing coming up the side of the jerseys, and everybody's like, I just don't get it. What was the deal with the influx of the tusk? So anyway, they got rid of one of those up on the shoulders. They still have it on the leg, and the pearl helmets came back. And they used to have the satin finish, kind of a matte, but it was more of a satin finish, and now it's the pearl helmet that they brought back for this last year, and I think they'll keep that probably going forward. So let's jump way back in time here, and I kind of want to go over the SEC era. So this is what Arkansas came into the SEC with. It's a standard jersey with just the numbers on the front, no name over it, 2 red stripes down the leg. the white pants, a hog on the hip, hogs on the shoulder pads. And I'll say the hogs on the shoulder pads seem to be one thing that most fans can agree with. Let's get the hogs back on the shoulder pads. So that's where they are right now. That's where they were when they first came to the league. And this one kind of alternate. This is also before when Arkansas was in the Southwest Conference. So this is, I think, most people nowadays think of this as your traditional Razorback uniform. So, this is 92, 99 off and on, again, since they joined the SEC and beyond that. But this came into play in 1994. This was the first really hideous Arkansas uniform. This was when they decided to add these two huge hogs that are 3 times the size of the helmet hog on the top of the shoulder pads. These are the Apex jerseys. They've got a little on the home red jersey. They got like the white little bar going across the chest, and they've got the Reebok things on the side. These are rough. There's no other way to describe this. These are universally disliked, and almost liked because they were so bad. Okay, so those were 94, and then you come back to this type of look, which we have Atwater here. And the more, again, what I think most fans that are alive today think of is more of a traditional Razorback uniform. All right, then Matt Jones comes along, and you have this Nike uniform with a black outline. Okay, so it's a clean look, hogs on the shoulders, a big fat stripe down the side of the leg, and a black outline around the numbers. I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think it's like, oh my gosh, they've got black in the uniform. If it's an accent like that, I don't think that's necessarily bad. These weren't a bad uniform. And then they wore these in 01 and 02, and then 03, 04, they signed with Adidas, and Adidas basically broke out the same uniform. Now, I think they had a weird reverse dagger up the side of the leg, maybe one of those years. I know they did against Texas when they unveiled them against Texas that year when Matt Jones went off. But this is not a bad look. The Adidas logo at the top of the number replaces the Nike on the side. So not a bad look. All right, this is the first real alteration, which a lot of people think of as a classic look. And this is a great look. And one of the reasons is because this is known as the Darren McFadden era jersey. Okay, I've got a picture of Felix Jones up here, but this is the McFadden era jersey. First time they put Arkansas across the chest. It's a clean look. Arkansas had a lot of success in this uniform. And in fact, I don't think people would be too upset if this was some kind of look like this came back for Arkansas, even though I think most people consider the one without Arkansas on the chest more the traditional look, but people love this uniform. So the 05-07 McFadden era jersey, okay, it had 2 stripes down the leg, also Arkansas across the chest, no outline with the numbering, big, bold numbering. This was a good look. For Arkansas. All right, 08-09, this is when Petrino came in. This is when the Tusk thing started coming about, okay? They had this tusk up the side. Mississippi State had the same look. It wasn't anything special. They had this tusk down the side of the jersey, and that went down and connected with the leg. It just looked kind of strange. And they wore this from 08 to 09. Just not a good look. And this is again after the Apex one. This was when things kind of got out of hand a little bit. Okay, so this is the 08-09 Tusk jersey. All right, in 10 and 11. Now this uniform isn't bad here. The away uniform. This is the Nile Davis time when Nile went off in 2010. It had kind of like I kind of thought of them as like military things over the shoulder pads. This is the away jersey. So the away jersey was white and it had red on top of the shoulder pads. This was not a bad look because they did have a lot of success. I actually like the away look, even though this is not a very traditional looking Arkansas uniform. I actually like the away look better than the home look. Okay. And the home, this is also the ones that had the little sweat pouch. There's like everybody's belly would like fill up with sweat because of the way the uniforms were designed. But here's Brandon Allen in number 13, actually. Bet you don't remember that. But had a lot of black accent on it, probably a little bit too much black accent, Arkansas across the chest, and the Tusk things coming up the side. So, yeah, that's that look. 2012 and 13, the Buzzsaw on the shoulders. For some reason, Arkansas went with these Buzzsaws on the shoulder, and they also had the faded jerseys. I remember there were times like there was a time when Nile Davis, I think, had his first big run. I believe it was against Kentucky, and I just remember thinking, man, I can't tell if that's Nile, if that's I think it's Nile Davis. I can't tell if it's Jonathan Williams or who it is, but it was Jonathan Williams had his first long run in this uniform right here. It was actually I think it might have been an anthracite in this one. This might have been the first anthracite era. So that's 2012 through 2013 jersey. Not my favorite, just a little bit too much going on. I think it's just they also brought out those white helmets with the terrible the fake shadow in the back. Just not a good look. Now, these weren't bad. These are the 2014-17 Nike Gig uniforms. Okay, the only problem with this, I think, for a lot of people is you associate it in a lot of ways with the worst stretch of football that Arkansas has had in the last, well, maybe forever. This last 7 years has been pretty bad. So, but this isn't a bad-looking uniform. I mean, I'm not just a huge fan of the font. I think it looks a little bit Arizona Diamondbacks, but it had Razorbacks across the chest of the home jerseys, Arkansas across the chest of the away jerseys. It's got the Tusk things on the side, which I think some people like that. I'm just not a big fan, and they did remove one of those Tusks with this the newest version, but it's a pretty clean look. When you consider Arkansas's uniforms over the last several years, it's a pretty clean look. And by the way, I want to say that Arkansas equipment guys and the people selecting uniforms do a really great job with this kind of stuff. I mean, I don't think people realize how much goes into planning all this stuff. So these are 14 through 17. And then, of course, we got in 2018, they changed a bunch. Well, they didn't change a bunch. They just changed the one of the Tusk and the helmet color. Now, also, when this first came out, this one right here, when it first came out, where are we? Where we go? All right, when this first came out, they actually darkened the red a little bit. It's like Pantone. I can't even remember the Pantone or whatever it is, but they darkened the red. They added the forward-facing logo and Razorbacks across the chest. So that's where things are. Well, they altered a couple things right there. So let me know what you think about the uniforms. Is this something that you care about? I mean, I think it's important to look sharp. I think it's important for the recruits. I think it's important to have something that's identifiable to the fans. I've always said, the integrity of the game, the players, the fans, those are the three most important things when it comes to college football. So the reason I bring all that stuff up is because Arkansas is going to be redoing the uniforms at some point. They have redone the uniforms every 2 years since 1992. They at least changed something. I mean, even with the Matt Jones Nike to Adidas, that were there for 4 years, they at least changed the company that they were with. So the fact that they've been with these uniforms, this general look since 2014, is an extremely long time. So, what we hear is there's going to be some kind of change. I would expect something within the next month. It doesn't mean that's going to happen, but that's kind of the time frame I'm thinking. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in Danny West. We got a few things we want to talk about with Razorback recruiting, and Danny's going to join us here in a second. Let me bring him up on the horn.
What's up?
What's up, Danny West? How you doing, man?
How's it going? I'm doing great.
Good. You're on with HawgSports Live. We just got done talking about Arkansas's uniforms over the past, just kind of breaking down the last 26 years of Arkansas uniforms. And, I was just saying, I don't think people realize what all goes into redesign. I mean, all the people you're trying to please and stuff, and, those guys in Razorback equipment and guys designing the uniform stuff do a great job with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think people may not realize that, a lot of times it's out of their hands. It's out of the coach's hands, even if you've got a brand new head coach. Shoot, I mean, you hire a guy in, December? Yeah. You're not getting new uniforms the following August. I mean, these things are kind of like schedules. Yes. You've got to get them so far out in advance that, I mean, this past year, I think the most they could do was remove that little front Tusk, which I thought ended up looking good. Yeah. Matter of fact, I would argue, staying on the topic of uniforms, if you get rid of the little forward-facing hog right there in your chest, get rid of that, replace the two Tusk-looking things on the sleeve with a running Razorback, I'm completely fine with the current uniform it is.
I feel like that would be a modern spin on a kind of a classic look in a lot of ways. Yeah. But I don't think these last uniform that Arkansas have had, especially when you consider the last two uniforms that they had before this, or the last three, I should say. I think this has been the best looking uniform they had. The problem is, I think a lot of people associate it with Brett Bielema, with Jeff Long, and with Lula.
I mean, there's there's a reason people love that McFadden uniform. They won 10 games. The 2011 uniforms I thought were pretty good. I thought you hit on something. I was watching the show before you called, but that 2010 Nile Davis away uniform with red shoulders, I was always a big fan of that. And I think we forget the 2009 team, in addition to the tusk coming up the stomach, also had the big blocks underneath the armpits there. Yeah. You remember that?
Yeah.
Mallet wore that. So I thought that was a pretty good look.
Yeah, I didn't think that was in the whole scheme of the latest uniforms, I didn't think that was a bad look. I did like the Nile Davis. For some reason, I always think of Nile Davis running with those shoulder pads on. And I think that's just because
South Carolina game. Yeah, he went off on them. Yeah,
I think this was a Georgia game also. So really, like the first, I don't want to say big win, but the game that I was thinking, I was like, this is an average Georgia team, okay, and they're going on the road, and this has the ability to be a really good Arkansas team. They need to win this game, and they did it in these jerseys here. So I think that's one reason those kind of stand out to me, but. I'm anxious to see what they come out with. I really am because, I assume that they're going to change direction.
I can tell, buddy. You're fired up about some uniform talk right now.
I like uniforms. I do. I always have.
I do too. I'm a fan.
I always have. I mean, you just think about when you're a kid and what you identify with Razorback football. It's kind of like when you're eating food and you're like, man, this takes me back to my childhood, And I think that's kind of what's important for fans. And like I was saying, it's important for players and recruiting and all that stuff too. But let's not just act like it's not important to fans because it is. So, Danny, let's see what we got here. Kind of a crap week for Arkansas as far as recruiting goes. That
was rough.
Let's start with Zevion Capers decommitting from Arkansas. That was a. I mean, you kind of felt it coming. Are they out of it?
Yeah.
Does that mean they're just out of it?
It would really surprise me if Arkansas is still a legit contender at this point. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could see that one coming. I mean, man, he keeps taking all these visits and telling all these different reporters, South Carolina, Tennessee, Auburn, they're one of my top schools. But I'm still committed to Arkansas and have a great relationship with Coach Stepp. But, yeah, Auburn's a new favorite of mine. I mean, come on, man. At some point you got to draw the line. And, I mean, you could totally see that coming. I would argue, that if it's going to happen at any position, might as well be wide receiver. You know, Coach Stepp is going to do a really good job. He's already got 2 other guys on board, and I think they're in really, really good shape with Colin Sullivan. Now, he's not a 4-star, and a lot of people get caught up with that is, are you taking a downgrade here? But Colin Sullivan is really good. Alex Adams is fantastic. I think he's an athletic freak kid out of Mississippi. And there's a couple other guys. So, they just offered a new one this past week. I thought it was interesting timing. The night before Zevion officially announced his decommitment, Arkansas goes out and offers a new 2020 wide receiver. So, yeah, they knew that was coming. No big surprise, but I guarantee you they'll be okay at that spot. Now, if you're sitting here talking about a Tykeus Crawford and losing that one, that's going to sting you quite a bit more.
Yeah, but, I agree. I agree with that, Danny. So just want to say one more time here, there's several ways to listen, several ways to watch: Facebook Live, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher. You can obviously throw us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. We'd love to have a review from you. Throw us thumbs up if you're listening right now and you hadn't done so already on Facebook Live or YouTube. Like, share, comment, follow, and hit that notification bell so you can get some notifications know when we're putting up these next videos. You can listen to Danny West, you can read Danny West on HawgSports.com. That's HAWGsports.com. Right now it's just $1 for your first month at HawgSports.com, or you can sign up for a year, take 30% off, and get a 7-day free trial. So basically nothing to lose with signing up with HawgSports. And if you ever have any questions on that, just ask on Twitter, what do you think on HawgSports? Hey, HawgSports members, what do you think about the job that we do over there? Because I don't think a lot of people realize, Danny, some of the content that we provide there. So Arkansas losing Zevion Capers. And as I've said before, you pass a lot of big-time schools on your way from Alpharetta, Georgia to Fayetteville, Arkansas. Oh, yeah. And that's what it takes a different kind of kid to do that. So they'll be fine at wide receiver. That's why Texas recruiting is so important. because it is so close. So the other bad news was Isaiah Moss, Iowa transfer, drops out of his Arkansas commitment. What went on there, Danny?
Well, if I had to speculate, and I don't know this for a fact, but I think it may have had something to do with the idea that maybe Isaiah wasn't exactly sure when he was going to be completed or graduated officially from Iowa. And, if you're Musselman, and if that speculation is true, and I'm right about that, if there is something to that, if you're Eric Musselman, you can't sit around and wait. He's trying to put pieces together, and he needs guys that he can count on at this point. So now, again, I don't have that confirmed, but just with some of the talk a couple of weeks ago about, well, he's not sure how long it's going to take. You kind of gotta make some moves here. Now, personally, how I felt about that one when he committed. I said, now you're a real contender for the tournament. I was sold on this guy. So, in my opinion, that's a gigantic loss. I felt like he was a guy that you really could have counted on this year. But
I was a big fan of that commitment too.
But if you replace him with Kerry Blackshear from Virginia Tech, largely considered the top graduate transfer in the country. Now, if you can pull that one off, you're right back in the same conversation, in my opinion. Now, the bad news is, Trey, Blackshear has already visited Florida before he came in here and visited. Now he's going to visit Tennessee and Kentucky. So, it's going to be tough, but I'm starting to believe in this Musk guy, man. He surprised me a few times. So
yeah, I agree with you. And on that Tennessee visit right now, that is there's no date that's been set on that or confirmed, I should say. There may be a date, but hadn't been confirmed. So.
I think he's trying to do both of those this week from what I was reading.
Okay. So for those wondering about Kerry Blackshear, 6'10", 250 pounds, Arkansas has gotten some nice additions. They haven't gotten a guy like this yet who can come in next year, especially Connor Vanover is not eligible next year with the waiver process. But this guy averaged almost 15 points a game, almost 8 rebounds a game last season for Virginia Tech, who went to the Sweet 16, and 54.5% on his field goal attempts, even 33.3% from three-point range, which makes you a viable three-point threat.
That's pretty good.
And 73.6% from the foul line. If they get Kerry Blackshear, they're going to the NCAA tournament next year. I'll go ahead and say that for you.
I'll ride with you on that one. I like that one.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm stepping out on too far.
Yeah, you're going way out there with that one. Yeah. Best player in the country, maybe.
Yeah. So that would be a nice addition, Kerry Blackshear. And we mentioned he's going to visit Kentucky and the Vols also. You released a Monday recruiting notebook today, Danny. Anything you want to hit on real quick? I know this is a VIP article, so we don't want to give away the horse, but anything you can hit on?
Just kind of regurgitating what a lot of people have already seen us write about in the last few days. But, it's pretty jam-packed week. Mm-hmm. As far as the camp today, they started their overnight camp. Matter of fact, it's still a few hours away from registration beginning, but got an overnight camp the next 2 days. Not expecting a lot of big names there. Mm-hmm. We found out yesterday that Arkansas coaches have actually, kind of scheduled some of their bigger guys to come in on Friday and Saturday this week. So that's really when we're going to see a lot of their top targets coming in here. Of course, you got some official visitors coming in that everybody's aware of. Blaine Toll, big kid out of Hazen, 4-star guy. John Gentry, running back out of Houston, North Shore. And then, of course, Mason Mangum out of Austin, Westlake, wide receiver who's already committed to him. You've got some notable unofficials coming in that, people can read about on the site there. And we know Chandler Morris will be back in this weekend. And as we've talked about, man, we're in summertime now, so would expect him to make a decision soon. I'm not insinuating that's going to be this weekend, but then again, you never know. So, read all about it in the Monday recruiting notebook.
All right, Danny. I guess we'll let you go, man. I appreciate it.
Any baseball ideas, Trey? What's going to happen today, bud? I'm not feeling great about it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't say I get the feeling like I did after Game 2 of the championship series last year, but I don't feel bad about it.
It's not over like that.
You're just nervous is what you are.
Well, here's the thing. Ole Miss they've proven it. They're not afraid of Arkansas. You can load up that hog pen. They're not one bit intimidated. Mm-hmm. No matter who wins today, hats off to them. They're really tough.
Yeah, no, they are. All right, Danny. Appreciate you joining us, man.
All right, brother.
All right.
We'll see you.
So that's Danny West with HawgSports.com. Danny has been with us for like a decade now and does a tremendous job covering recruiting. If you haven't ever followed any of Danny's recruiting stuff, he does most of our VIP content over there. So go on there, check it out. Check out the 7-day free trial with a year, or sign up for the first month for just $1. All right, we're going to bring in Pete Roulier now. All right, so Pete Roulier joining us with HawgSports.com. He does most of our baseball coverage and also chips in with football, basketball, recruiting as well. Pete, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I just was listening to you guys and Danny, and like you said, this one's got a lot of Hawg fans nervous, and you kind of were relaying the sentiment as well that Ole Miss isn't scared, so this is going to be a very fun, close game today.
I agree with you. We don't want to talk too much about the game today because a lot of people will be listening to it after it's over because we have so many listens throughout the week. But it's a big one, obviously. It's a chance to go to Omaha, and I think it's got a lot of people nervous. I want to go over the recruiting calendar real quick. Didn't do that with Danny, but in basketball this week right now, you've got, what is today? The 10th? Is that right?
Today is the 10th.
So the 10th. So you've got these next 3 days are the quiet period, which means recruits can visit coaches in basketball on campus, but coaches can't visit them off campus. And then we've got 2 days on the 13th and 14th for an evaluation period, which means coaches can go out and watch prospects, but they can't really communicate with them other than just say, hey, how's it going, that kind of thing. So that's where we are right now with basketball, and it's kind of similar next week also. In football, right now we are also in a quiet period. Again, that means players can visit coaches. You have camps and things like that going on. So it's a quiet period, June 1 through July 31, except there's a dead period for a month, June 24th through July 24th. So right now it's a quiet period. It's time for camps and stuff like that. Coaches can't go out and see players, but players can come in and see them. And you had a little breakdown about some upcoming dates here, Pete. You got the specialist camp, Big Cat Mega Camp. Things like that. With baseball, what could we expect, I guess, if Arkansas were to win today and were to move on?
So the winner of this game today between Ole Miss and Arkansas would take on Florida State in the first game of Omaha. Mm-hmm. And Florida State's a team that's been surging, absolutely just on fire, one of those teams that really kind of made their run late. In terms of the side of the bracket for Omaha, you really love the way things lined up because Arkansas is on the side with the 1 seed where there's UCLA, and UCLA got knocked off in the LA Regional, so there's the 1 seed gone. So if you get to Omaha, whoever gets to Omaha, like Danny said, hats off to whoever gets to Omaha. They got a pretty – I think they might be the favorite in that bracket, so it's lining up pretty good for them. And then, of course, Vanderbilt's scary right now on the other side of that bracket. That's a scary situation, especially with Kumar Rocker just now throwing that no-hitter. But, so that's all going to start next Saturday, though, and then carry on throughout that week.
Pete Roulier joining us with HawgSports.com. Again, you can read Pete's stuff on HawgSports.com, HawgSports.com, our main baseball guy. So real quick, how do you think things are going to play out today?
So there's 2 freshman pitchers and 2 guys that have kind of been off and on all season long. So how that goes, nobody really knows, especially this time of year. But Ole Miss is going to go with Gunnar Hoglund to start things off, and he's got I think it's a 4.64 ERA. Then Wicklinger's got a 4.2 ERA or something like that. Very, very similar numbers and about the same numbers start. So in terms of starting pitchers, it's just a matter of if those freshmen are on today. But what Coach Van Horn said is he likes where everyone's at with pitching because both games were blowouts either way. So it's not like Arkansas had to go use their best reliever, or Scroggins, Kostychuk, or Cronin in that first game. And then in the second game, Ole Miss was up early, so they didn't have to use their best guy in Austin Miller. So both bullpens are feeling good, and both teams like where they're at. It's just a matter of who's going to make that error, and is Casey Martin going to be able to throw it straight to Trevor Ezell instead of 10 feet over his head? Because if that happens, I mean, this is going to be the game where it's going to cost them, I feel like. So it's going to be a really close game. And Danny said it best. You can't really say who's going to win this one. It's just so close. And Ole Miss is not scared. You like having that bomb advantage, but it feels like it doesn't matter against them this season.
Yeah, should be a pretty wild one today. So, Pete, how old are you? We're going to change gears on you real quick. How old are you?
Oh, no. Okay, yeah, I'm 23.
23. So Pete graduated from the University of Arkansas with a degree in journalism in this past December. So he's the new guy at HawgSports.com doing a great job. But the reason I ask you that is we've had a lot of discussion about Razorback uniforms. And being 23, I don't know that you have the same idea in your mind of what the classic Arkansas uniform is as I do. What is your idea of classic Arkansas uniform, and what do you think about them right now?
That's a pretty open-ended question. I think that
I gave you room to work there.
Our Hog, growing up in Arkansas, our idea of the classic would be the Darren McFadden jersey, just like everyone's mentioned. Yeah, just the white. It's the Adidas one, right?
Yes.
And then just the big number 5 that you could buy, or the number 9 Matt Jones one. You know, that kind of simple, red and white, nothing too out of character. But I was also looking on here at the HawgSports Live comments. Forget who said it. It was somebody said something about Oregon, but that's kind of what our generation's noticed. Yeah. There's a bunch of kids from Arkansas that are Oregon fans because they got all these cool uniforms. I think that's something that really
now Oregon used to have just the worst. I mean, you go back and look at some real old Oregon stuff; they were terrible. But I think Oregon's thing now, their traditional thing, is changing up their uniforms. I think that has kind of become, you know, what Oregon is about. So, so the McFadden era Arkansas uniforms, I think a lot of people love those uniforms, and one reason they were so successful in them. But that was really the first time that Arkansas put Arkansas across the chest of the uniform. And that was always kind of viewed more, at least at that time, more of a Big 12 type of thing. Not really a bunch of teams in the SEC were doing that. But if you look in the NFL now, I mean, those are all very identifiable franchises. And most of those put at least some small text above the uniform now. And that's, I guess, maybe happened more since they switched over to Nike from Reebok as doing the official uniforms for them. So, yeah.
I think that looks sharp, the little text over the numbers.
Yeah, I think it looks fine. I don't have a problem with it. And I think the main thing that people, I think no matter what, I think the thing that most people would get on board with are if you put the Hogs back on the shoulders, and you don't mess with the helmet. You keep the Razorback logo on the helmet, obviously. I don't think they'll ever mess with that. But you put the Hogs on the shoulders, and you do the double stripes down the side of the leg, and a hog on the front left of the hip. And I think most people identify with that kind of thing as being traditional Razorback. And the rest of the stuff is, you know, it's a little all over the place. So,
well, what I'll say about that is nothing specific, but I think we mentioned this a little bit a couple weeks ago, maybe about Musselman, but just how Morris and Juracek, I really think, have a pulse on what's cool now with these kids. Morris has proven that time and time again with his social media savvy and everything that he's got going on. He's kind of a younger guy.
That's a great point. That's a great point, Pete, that you make, because so far everything that these guys have done is, when you talk about Musselman and especially Morris, who's been here longer, there's not much you can say is like, man, I don't know about that. I mean, because you look at the graphics that they put out, all of that stuff is just tremendous. I mean, there's no question about it. And like we were saying, I don't think most people realize the uniforms that they wore last year were actually not approved by Chad Morris. They were approved by Brett Bielema. They came out in December, which means the uniforms that they have coming out right now have been decided for probably 6 months or so.
Yeah, that's good news to hear. And like you mentioned earlier, you called me the young guy. I'm 23.
Yeah, well, you're the young guy.
I do remember being 17, 18 not too long ago, and I knew it was cool. And I still feel like I know what's cool in a way, and they are killing it. I mean, especially, I think we talked about this, the graphic with the when NCAA football was just the talk about it coming back was getting going, and they put that graphic out. It looks super clean, and I think they might have been, I know a couple other universities did that, but they're on the forefront of all that kind of stuff. So I expect it to be something new and chic and something that 18, 17-year-olds will like, right?
Yeah. So you're 23. You know, I was 23 when I got into this business back in, 2003 or something like that. You know, did you ever had a chance to listen to that podcast? You probably haven't. You've been so busy with baseball, but there's Clay Travis did a podcast with Shannon Terry, who's founder of Rivals and 24/7 Sports, who sold both of those companies for $100 million. But it's really interesting to listen, and really, I think in a lot of ways describes like my path that I took through this business. But, being hired, what they were looking for in publishers and in training publishers. And Shannon actually hired me twice, hired me at Rivals, hired me at 24/7. But I think it also tells a lot of the reasons that we came over to 24/7 to be with an innovator like Shannon Terry. But for anybody who hasn't listened to that, is a great listen, just kind of on the history of recruiting services and how that started, and then the fractures with Scout and all that stuff throughout the eras. But you should listen to that, Pete. It'll tell you a lot about me.
Yeah, well, a little inside the biz. I think just being at 24/7, starting at 23, like I said, a little inside the biz here. But just the way that 24/7 works for a new journalist getting into this business, it makes it a lot easier for me to transition from doing TV on UATV, the university network, to coming in and doing something like this. So it's been great. Just the interface is so easy to use, and I encourage anybody that hasn't signed up or subscribed to do that now, because the stuff that you're getting right there it's insider information.
Some of the best stuff that Shannon said, there's no substitute for talent, but if you have talent, it doesn't matter. There's no substitute for grinding in this business. And a lot of people think that there's not any really great sports journalism jobs out there, and that is absolutely incorrect. If you're willing to really put forth the effort and establish yourself, then there are great jobs out here, and these are one of the few, I guess. So
us 23-year-olds call it #Team No Sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
Or something like that.
Exactly. You got to have a weird sleeping pattern. All right, Pete. I know you got some stuff to get to. I want to thank you for joining us, and any last words of wisdom?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and check out Facebook Live here in a little bit. I'm going to be at the pregame doing a Facebook Live if you guys are listening live, so check that out.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Pete. All right, that's Pete Roulier with HawgSports.com. So as he was mentioning before the game, first pitch and everything, Pete will be out there close to field level doing a Q&A, answering some of your questions. So if you want to get back on Facebook Live, you'll be able to watch his stuff, probably like, I would say 20, 30 minutes before the game starts. Again, I want to remind you, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher are ways to listen. Throw us that review, 5 stars and a review. Facebook Live, YouTube, ways to watch. Throw us a thumbs up on both of those platforms, or a heart, or anything. If you don't like what we're doing, then don't throw us a review. But if you do, we'd love to have you help us extend that message. So let's get to a few comments here. We've got about 4 minutes left. I want to get to these comments. Austin Pageant says, I guess I'm old school. I'm a little old school too. I don't mind a modern twist, though. I think they're going to do a great job with these uniforms. I really have high hopes, just based on some of the stuff that they just seem to get when it comes to the other graphics and stuff that they put out. Where do you see our football record being this year? Bowl game, if so, which one? So not Shreveport. They've removed the Shreveport game, but it could be something like Birmingham. I mean, it really could. I think Texas wouldn't be bad. It's been a while since Arkansas went to the Texas Bowl. They show up to Houston. That was definitely a fun weekend in 2014. But first, I think they got to get past Ole Miss. That is such a big game when you consider what it could mean for recruiting, because I think recruits are starting to look at that 2-10 record. And as Jeff Traylor said not long ago when we had an interview with him, he's anxious to see what they'll do with a winning record. So if you can get that Week 2 game in Oxford, they almost beat them last year, I think that'd be huge, because you're not guaranteeing 5 wins, but you're almost guaranteeing 5 wins. And then, you just got to sneak out one somewhere else. Gloria Brown says she hated those 94 uniforms. Everybody hated those 94 uniforms, Gloria. I don't know what they were thinking, but those Apex they were rough. Michael Allen Russell says, how do you see our baseball team doing this afternoon? I think we covered that, Michael Allen. Shane says winning. That's a good answer. Parker Hilliard says 6-6 Texas Bowl. I could see that, absolutely. I'm somewhere teetering around 5-6 wins. We'll see how things go in fall camp, especially with the quarterback. Uniforms don't play. Garen Polston says just leave the hog on the helmet alone. I think everybody agrees with that one. Gregory Curl says, but uniforms recruit. They absolutely do. I mean, you look at when recruits come to town, they have basically a professional photo shoot for these recruits. I mean, it's not like it used to be where they just take your picture. I mean, they have a big deal going on where they're posing like they're showing off new uniforms, basically. So recruits care about the uniforms, no question. As I said before, you look down at your driver when you're playing golf, you don't like the way it looks, you're probably not going to hit it well either. So I think there's something to be said for that. I would also say you probably could tell the people who don't care about uniforms by the way they dress. You could probably tell they don't care about their appearance either. Justin Foster says, I like to change the uniform right now. Let's move on from the Bielema long look. That's the thing. Those last uniforms are not that bad. They're not that bad. They're actually pretty good, but associated with 7 years of a struggle, I think. So let's get a change. New era, new AD, new head coach. Drew Wolverton says, is there some news on the official announcement, or is it just a lead up to a potential announcement? It's just a lead up. I just kind of look up at dates and actually had an alert set off on my phone. Hey, this might be a good time to look at uniforms, basically, is why. And the reason is because the 2012 Buzzsaw uniforms were June 10th of that year, and then this last revision in 2018 was July 13th. So I'm thinking maybe this is kind of when you start seeing uniform stuff popping out. So just kind of getting ahead of it. No more Tusk, please. Give me the salivating hog. I agree on the no more Tusk. I don't know about the salivating hog unless you're talking about the slobbering hog with the basketball court. I wouldn't be terribly opposed to seeing that come back. I could take that either way. I mean, I get the aspect that it's too cartoony for nowadays, but I wouldn't be terribly opposed to the slobbering hog. Austin Gibson says, I only care if the recruits like them. I think a lot of people have that stance, Austin, and yeah, I mean, you definitely want them to look good, though, Austin. I mean, there's no question you want them to look good and the recruits like them. Whether that, what kind of balance that is, I don't know. Phil K. Johnson Sr. says, let's the players ready. The uniforms ain't going to win games. I would disagree. I think uniforms play a role in how much you like them. I hope to see something with the pants. I think the pants probably go – I say double stripe on the pants. I'm not a big fan of like the Tusk thing on the pants. Frankie Julian says, when are they releasing the unis? I think I covered that. That's just my educated guess. It could be right up until game time. Take a look at what Oregon does. They can recruit like crazy, and Oregon has the advantage of having Nike there to do that and be invested in that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, Oregon sets the trend. I mean, there's no question about it. Chris Craven says, Gregory Curl, bingo. Frankie Julian says, let's go Diamond Hogs. Michael Allen Russell says, where do you see us going in basketball this year? I mean, if they were to get Kerry Blackshear, then I think they're going to the NCAA tournament. I think they had a good shot with Moss on board, but, I guess a lot of people thought that the academics was still maybe too much in question. Again, that's not something I know officially, but that seems to be what a lot of people are talking about. But they get Blackshear, then they're going to the NCAA tournament next year. They've done about as good a job when you consider hiring coaches and bringing in players as you could expect. Now, obviously, the Moss thing would be great if that worked out, but it just doesn't look like it's going to. Justin Williams says, with or without Blackshear, Arkansas is going dancing next year. It's possible. I wouldn't put it past them. I mean, there were so many close games. I mean, if they can get over the hump in some of those last year, they probably wouldn't dancing last year, and we're, still with Mike Anderson. Let's see. Don says, who's pitching today? It's going to be Wicklander. Gregory Qualls says, hey, Coach. Got to love the support Musselman gives other HawgSports. Oh, that's Greg Qualls. Got to give it. Yeah, I agree. And the communication is important between coaching staffs also. I'm in Alabama rooting. Oh, yeah, I grew up in BB loving the Hogs. All right, Glenn. All right, everybody, I want to thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the uniform discussion today, and we were able to provide a little bit of insight in Arkansas recruiting and where things kind of went last year with, some decommitments and some more unfortunate things like that. Again, one time reminding you, like, share, subscribe. Give us that thumbs up right now. Comment. All that stuff helps push whatever algorithm is out there. It helps push it out there if you comment or throw us thumbs up or any kind of reaction like that. So do so. If you're listening to Apple Podcasts, throw us 5 stars and a review. We'd love to have that. So we'll join you guys again Thursday. Again, we're going to try to start doing these Mondays and Thursdays. We'll see you again Thursday. This has been Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com. We'll catch you next time.